What you guys smoking?
Wiseman. I'm about to light up the Petite Poema.
Wise man, rich man. Rich man, wise man. And about to be rich man, poor man, because your ass is going to, now that you drive a BMW, you're going to understand.
Right.
Service.
At least he's okay.
Ah, okay, good. Yeah, I was about to peek my head in yesterday. I hope you got the warranty on that thing. No, that thing is cool as hell, though.
Yeah, I love it, man.
What is it, 850?
840.
840?
Yeah.
God damn.
22, 840. Yeah. She's fun.
Yeah.
She's fun.
Busy's all geeked out because Busy gonna grown up a little bit and got this reliable car. And then, but I can tell that
See it in his
inner,
eyes.
like,
You see it in his eyes.
he's like, we were having a discovery call with a client, and their product has nothing to do with anything close to a BMW.
Yeah.
But he somehow put it into the vision of like, oh, you know what? I could picture this inside this new BMW 8 Series because it's got this crystal deal. And I'm Busy, hang on, man.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with this product. You know it has nothing to do with this product.
The other day he's doing a project and he comes in, he's like, man, can I see your keys? I just want to shoot. I just want to use them for a shoot. Yeah, man, whatever you need, bro. Yeah.
P5 is going to be in the JW shoot.
Yeah.
It's in there.
That's a client I'm talking about. He's like,
yeah.
what kind of car? Because we started talking about cars. When we started talking like inspiration and stuff, we'll find that middle ground of what we connect with.
Yep.
And what's your product? What's your brand like? What is this? And we start talking cars. All right, if it's an AMG, what is it? If it's a car, what is it? It's a Mercedes. All right, if it's a Mercedes, what is it? It's an AMG. Here comes Busy out the right corner. I think it's a BMW 8 Series. Like, or what did you say? You said it was a GTS.
No, yes, it's the AMG GT.
AMG GT.
That's that unicorn that only a few have, and when it pulls up, you know what it is.
The 840 is the competition for that car. That's the exact that they made that in competition for that. Yeah, I was. No, so here's the story. Can I tell you the story of the day?
Yeah.
All right, so like I had been researching a second car, right? But then I, like Busy, came to this mature decision that I wasn't going to do that, right? So I was like, here's my compromise. I'm gonna just soup up the truck a little bit, right? I was gonna go tint the windows and put rims on it, right? So I had been in conversation with like 2 or 3 rim and tire shops, and all of them told me that it would take 2 months for them to get the specific set that I wanted. Completely unacceptable in my eyes, right? I wanted like immediate gratification.
You are mature.
Yeah, I wanted.
You are looking to make mature decisions.
Yes.
And 2 months waiting for rims is not it.
That's not it.
No.
And then I went to go get my windows tinted, all right? And the guy tells me, he's like, well, your back windows are already tinted. The front windows are too. I could change it, but it won't be much of a difference. And if we smoke it all out, if we black it out, he was like, I guarantee you're going to get pulled over, right? Now, whether that's BS or not, whatever. But when he said that, immediately in my head, I was like, nope, no thank you. So at that point, I was like, well, I can't do what I want to do, so I'm going to go do what I want to do. So I go over to Mercedes, right? Family car. Mercedes is a family thing here, apparently. Right? So I go over to Mercedes because I had been looking at the GT63. Also, little known fact, I wore 63. My mom has it tattooed on her. So there was going to be no 43 or 53. It had to be 63 because anything else is blasphemy. I get to the place and like nobody knows what to do with me. Like I walk in and the service was marginal at best, right? Which I was surprised at. But eventually they got me with a gentleman who was really nice. Can't remember his name. No inventory, none. They showed me like a C-Class and then a G-Wagon, which I hate the G-Wagon.
Hey, man.
Right? So we're leaving and my girlfriend's like, well, why don't we just go over to BMW? Let's just see. Pull the truck up and the first car I see is that 22 8 Series. And I was like, that's it right there. But we're gonna test drive more than just that. I mean, I got in it and it was just perfect and that was it. Yeah, that's how it went, man. Had to leave the family, I'm sorry.
Don't worry, you'll be back.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You'll be back. Shit, you talk about the family like I got a BMW. I got an 06 Ridgeline, man.
I don't know, man. That Mercedes-Benz is kind of ingrained in the Frakes deal now. I mean, y'all are kind of a Mercedes-Benz family.
Yeah, because I mean
You're just an outlier.
they've had them. The beauty is my dad's so cheap that he just watched that depreciation value just dump down, and then he'll just pick one up, and you can pick one up for about $8,000 that's 2 years old.
Right.
So he's got that. So it's cheapness in Mercedes runs thick in our blood. So that over off to my side, I've got brother Chuck Walls here. On my other side, I have brother JV John Vaughn. I don't know how this is going to work necessarily. It's not really an interview. It's just kind of us sitting here having a morning cigar.
Yeah, a normal day here.
We're having a normal day.
Yeah.
Aside from the little Mexican garb you got on the backside of your chairs there.
I decided not to question that.
Just roll with it.
Yeah, okay.
Just roll with it. We're trying to bring culture into this thing. That's why this podcast looks like an Oreo right now.
Okay, change it up a little bit. Okay, diversity.
Busy said, "Hey, it's just been all brothers lately." So, Brandon, you've got to do this.
I got you.
And it's Pride Month too. So
and it's Pride Month.
It is Pride Month.
Yeah.
Mexican Pride.
Yeah.
I want to kick it over here just to give people an idea of what you do.
Okay.
I don't want to go into this whole too much, but what do you do? How do you afford 17 cars and everything else?
Stop it. No, so I'm a talent evaluator for the Cleveland Browns. Basically, to keep it short, I help make decisions on the players that we acquire. That's the best short answer I can give you.
And on this side, we have someone who a couple decades ago, maybe less. You would have been looked at by a guy like this, and they would have decided to make the decision to pull the trigger with you.
Yeah.
John Vaughn, give me 30 seconds. Give them 30 seconds.
Wow. Entrepreneur, dad, writer, advocate, brother,
Ex-football player, maybe?
Yeah, retired NFL athlete.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Was once very, very fast.
Yeah, was once.
Once.
Probably in the top 10 fastest people in the world, but, who's to say? They never wanted to race me. They just talked. But, true.
Fast.
For real.
For real.
I watched some footage of you.
I mean, I ran a 419.
What?
40. Yeah.
That's Bo fast.
Yeah.
That's Bo Jackson fast, right? 4.2?
I don't believe 419.
Yeah, on the track.
I don't believe that either.
I don't believe that.
I
give him 4.35 all day. All day, every day, rolling out of bed. But 419 is excessive.
4.19 means he should still be able to run a 4.8 now, right?
I ran a 10-100.
That's
okay.
No. He can't run a 4.8 right now.
That's what I'm saying is if he ran a 4.1.
That would be.
So you're telling me that in my 51st year of life that if I trained, I couldn't run a 4.8?
Hang on.
That's what I'm telling you.
It's 51. Let's give him a 5.1.
Because this is why I think the top 0.5% of the world in that age range is around maybe breaking 5 flat. Maybe.
All right.
Well,
when's your 51st?
March 12th, 2022.
On March 12th.
Now I've got a reason to train again.
Yeah, if you can run a 5.1.
I believe I can break 5.
I can see. Yeah.
I believe I can break 5.
4.8. No. Hold on.
I might be able.
That's
to get
the problem. 4.8 and 4.95. That's.
I mean.
So yes, I think you can.
You were a center.
I think you can get 4. I think you can break 5. I think you can break 5.
Yeah.
But 4.8 is not 4.95.
I get that.
Yeah. Okay.
And,
but I think you can break numbers. 5. I think you can break 5.
And I know how to train.
Okay.
And right now,
you gonna run a 4.8?
Right now, I'm still probably and can be one of the fastest 50-plus-year-old men in the world. I can put that on, my mama.
Yeah, I agree. But do you know how what that time is?
I do.
That's what I'm saying. I agree with that statement.
I do. And I know what that time is, and that's the thing. And I know what it feels like to run a 4.1 too.
I hear you, but here's the deal. Here's the deal.
I really want to see if I can do it now. Not because I'm going to put money on it like yes, I can run a 4.8. I just want to see how close to a 4.8 I can get.
I like that.
Yeah.
Keep in mind,
I haven't used fast switch muscles.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
When's the last
That's
time
what I'm
them knees
saying.
were bending that fast?
Well, I mean, I was still playing soccer at 40 and still scoring, 2-3 goals a game.
It goes quick. Though.
It does.
People
go
don't realize
quick.
it goes quick.
It does.
I think
it
you
does
could
go
be.
quick.
I mean, first off,
I think I could beat Tom Brady in a 40-yard dash right now.
I think Busy can
Tom Brady.
beat Tom Brady
Yeah.
backwards.
Yeah.
I think so.
speaking of which, did you see Vic ran like a 4.7 flat at 42, maybe a couple weeks ago? That's
And
ridiculous.
that's Vic.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's ridiculous.
That's Vic.
That's ridiculous. That's like, and he was mad at himself. But that's my point. I think, and that's my point.
But I was a track guy. So, like I said, I ran a 10-100. So when you equate that over the course of 40 yards, like people are like, well, that's super fast. Yeah, but I ran it on a track. I ran it on at that time, it was the best track surface in the world.
And that's at Michigan.
No, this was going into the NFL.
Okay.
So I was training on a track, and you just have, track has way more bounce and it has way more.
It's a fast surface.
Yeah, it's just a faster surface, right? Turf, still to this day, I don't know anybody other than myself and Tony Bowles that ran a faster electronic 40 in the history of Michigan. They talk about Denard, but,
No, you're way faster than that.
I know.
Yeah.
So how do you translate that? All right, so you're the fastest guy in the world. I'm just going to keep going in that direction. Play ball. You get in there. And then you start playing in the league. Did you notice, because you played college ball, and there's a massive jump from high school ball to college ball in just overall speed of the game and speed of people. What was that jump like going from college to pro? As far as speed of the game, speed of everything.
Everybody was faster. But, ironically, having us here together, I always had Chuck was a center. Always had a great relationship with my centers, right? Because I think they're the most underappreciated position in football, right? And as a running back, if the center doesn't have the line, they're sacrificing so that I can get the glory, essentially. Mm-hmm. So, I made it a point, if not knowing how the speed was going to be, but knowing that, I'm looking across the line and it's Andre Tippett, who is now a Hall of Famer, right? Some way, somehow, I've got to trust my linemen to get me through. Other than that, it's like greatness in movies, right? There's like Shawshank. You're talking about guys that are arguably the best athletes at every level, on every team, now at every position.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how the conversation people will have, can
the best college team beat the worst pro team?
People don't understand,
No.
People don't understand, there might be, even take as great as Alabama is, right? All the first round picks, all the guys that play in the league, right? In college you recruit, but you don't get all the recruits you want, right? On any given NFL team, Nick Saban will take everybody on that team right now. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? There's going to be a couple guys that you miss on in a recruiting class. It just happens, right? It's just the nature of the beast. You can't be perfect. Everybody on an NFL team can play on a college team, but you can go to any college practice and you might see a couple guys and you're like, he ain't gonna make it, or he's gonna transfer, or transfer portals is a big thing now. Some guys just aren't good enough. Everybody's good enough. If you make it to game day, everybody's good enough. Now you might have a couple of guys that are bottom of the barrel bubble guys or whatever, but they're gonna get their chances with other teams. They're gonna bounce around a little bit. But even those guys, if they went up here to North Texas right now, they'd be All-Americans. They'd kill it.
Mm-hmm. So. Is it weird for you to look at the sport that everyone sees as entertainment and people see these guys just pouring themselves into the game? Is it weird to see it as a business and as an asset? Or is that a mindset? Because I picture you going, you're very objective.
Right.
He's not fast enough. He's not, you can see it in the mentality, not worth our money.
Yeah.
Is it weird to look at it from a business standpoint?
So I find myself being a joy kill sometimes. Like
telling him he's not as fast as he thinks he is?
Yeah, like that. No, not like that. He was a fast man. But like, let's say I'm in an environment with like fans and we're like everybody's watching the game, and then especially when I'm around friends, people know what I do, so they want to pick my brain naturally, and I love talking about the game because I love what I do. But there'll be such and such player, and maybe he's like super productive, right? Super exciting in college, and I'm like, yeah, he's not gonna make it. Like long term, like you appreciate him for what he is, right? He's a baller in college, and like I hope he makes the most of his situation. But like everybody doesn't translate, and that's no knock on the kid. Like that's no knock. Like usually especially at a big program, usually if a guy is balling on Saturdays and he's doing it consistently and he's the face of the program, usually not only is he a baller on the field, but he's usually doing the right things off the field. Like he works hard, he loves it. So I'm never going to knock anybody for that, right? But there's you're right. The NFL is a business, and we have to judge appropriately. And yes, it's hard for me to turn that off. Like I'm always. And it actually translates into other things too. Like it could be basketball, it could be whatever. Like I'm just a sports, like that's how I view sports. I don't know, it's weird.
Yeah, you're like the perfect mix of shit talker and business guy there. So when they all come together, you just fire that stuff out there.
Right, and from a player's perspective, like you got guys fighting for their job.
Right, fighting for their life.
Yeah, right? Grown men.
Yeah, grown men.
Yeah.
Like, and that with the athletic ability, I mean,
you got to understand there are some creatures out there now.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
freaks
of nature who are, like JV said, are wired the right way, who are trying to solidify a legacy for themselves and their family on top of being like in the top 1% of athletes in the world.
Yeah.
Like that's a different ball game, Chief.
Mm-hmm.
We ain't talking about Conference USA, Big 12, SEC. We're talking about somebody who was all world. You know, like, yeah.
I mean, I can't even remember the amount of Hall of Famers I either played with or played against week in and week out. Bruce Smith, we could never block him at New England. Dan Marino, Joe Montana, Marcus Allen, Howie Long, Steve Young, Jerry
Were
Wright.
you playing in the Singletary days?
Singletary would have been just retiring. Like Lawrence Taylor had one-on-ones with him in training.
Have you gotten hit by
You got to tell the story. You got to tell the.
So this is my welcome to the NFL story. We used to have this thing in New England called 96 Tiers. It was 8 drives of 12 plays, scrimmage. So our first round running back is holding out. The previous first round running back is holding out. So it's basically all rookies and free agents. And on like the 5th series, other tailbacks had fumbled. So I'm now in for like the rest of the tiers, right? So we get down on the goal line. We're scrimmaging Washington Redskins. And what was it, Wilbur Marshall playing for the Redskins. And we do, it's called blast, right? It was right blast in between the center and the guard on the right side. He's playing left defensive or outside linebacker, right, to our left.
It's not good. I'll tell you that right.
No, it sounds like you guys may have pulled that left tackle.
Mind you, I'm 6 yards deep. We're on the 1 yard line. He crashes down at the snap, meets me, hits me so hard. See what hit me so hard I couldn't fumble because the ball
was a part of your organs,
and it got lodged under my pads, and I end up a yard deeper than I was. So we're now on the 2 yard line over the right tight end. Never been hit like that before in my life. And I remember it's the hottest day of the summer. We're in Foxborough Stadium. His eyes are bloodshot and we're tired, right? So, of course, I'm a rookie. I come out 2 years early. I'm not saying anything, but I'm thinking I have no more internal organs. Right? We
I'm
finished.
dead. I'm sure I'm dying.
So I remember taking off my jersey, my pads when I get into the locker room, in the bathroom, and the logo of the ball is bruised into
It is tattooed.
my side. It's tattooed, right? And at that point, I said, "Okay, welcome to the NFL," because this is a scrimmage, and this is a guy that won a Super Bowl in the '85 Bears.
That arguably
The best defense ever.
Yep.
Right? Super Bowl shuffle, all that. But I've never seen, and this is a man late in his career, over on left tight end. Like, you got to picture this.
It's a lot of space.
That's a lot of
He
space to
gets
crash.
off so fast and is so low. I'm 5'10". And at that point, I think I'm 5'10", 186 pounds, because we're in the middle of training camp. And he hits me so hard, form tackle, that I now have Wilson for like 2 weeks.
And that's when tackling was different, right?
Yes.
That's when tackling was head in front, pick him up, wrap him up, drive him through the ground.
I
So you got all of
probably
him.
went up a couple octaves. I probably had a yeah. It was not
You
a
know
deep
that
Yeah,
hit
a sound-
too.
a sound
You know
came out
that
of it,
hit
for
that,
sure.
Yeah.
For
when you
sure.
hit, you're kind of just reassessing your life.
Yeah.
You know.
It's like, why am I doing this? Yeah.
All of a sudden, life is not as clear as it was.
No, and you can't quit. But you have to take that first hit, that first real hit, to know. And that was preseason. I mean, that wasn't even preseason, that was scrimmage. And then you get to preseason and it's higher. But then the season's higher. And then Monday night's higher. And then playoffs higher. Like, that's the thing that is different than college. College, you get up for rivalries and bowl games. In the NFL, there's all these levels and you had to learn to match that intensity.
So how does that teach you, and how does that translate from your view, also from both your views, of learning how to operate under high intensity, high pressure, and not being able to rest and stop and then go back, but just continuously operate?
Well, I think it's funny because I think JV hit it earlier, like when we were poking at him about the 40 time, and he was like, "Oh, now I have a goal," right? So you'll find out, like, and you see this across any business sector, right? Like, most good leaders keep their subordinates under goals, short-term goals, right? Focus on the task at hand, right? And you might, like, say for instance, 4 quarters, right? Like in football, like the best coaches I've been around always talk about 4 quarters, and they do that with practice. They do that within practice, like within certain drills, like, right, to finish, conditioning, whatever the case may be. So anyway, I think the way that, for me, like, staying focused, especially when I'm on the road, so we have deadlines, right? And then I have a very rigorous schedule, but I know that, like, okay, these 2 weeks I'm going on these 4 swings, and these are the amount of players I need to see, and this is what I need to get done. Boom, okay, do that, go home 3 or 4 days, do it again, recharge, do it again, right? So just keeping goals very clear and consistent. I think that's what I've seen. That's how I've seen it done as far as keeping focused. And
Well, I think, I was blessed to play at Michigan. So I remember, I went from playing in front of 2,500 people to 106,000. I think I never played in front of less than 106,000 at home. You find a way to have your heart rate down in the moments of chaos, because it's really controlled chaos. Because when you think of a 60-minute game, at the end of the day, I'm only really running 30 minutes. So there are moments that like your heart rate spikes, and then you bring it back down. And I think one of the things that Chuck and I have talked about, where I told him where I see, his limitless career, is he thinks like a center, because he is a center. So he thinks of the game, and the center is the guy that's calling the huddle, calming everybody down, telling the line where to go. He's calmer than the quarterback in a lot of ways, but he doesn't have the light on him, right? And I think that mentality is, I've heard Chuck talk to other, scouts and mentor and whatnot, and he has this calmness about him that you need to have, because once they say hike, it is massive chaos. So if you're not ready for that mentally, then you crack. You see the spotlight shrink people.
I agree with that, because in moments of pressure and in moments of chaos, people either mature or immature.
Oh yeah, it
in the
exposes
moment.
you. Yeah, it exposes
right?
you quick.
Yeah.
And if you have an emotional response, and this is why I love biking and motocross and football and all of those sports that get your heart rate spiked, and then you have to make decisions that have grave consequences if you mess up.
Yeah, I've experienced that with you.
Yeah. Oh, wait till I take you downhill. But with it makes you be matter of fact. And
Sure.
it makes you take your emotion out of it. And when I was working some executive security, when everything got loud, you get quiet. And in business, when you're running around and everything's busy and it's turning and it's scaling, don't hype up and get excited. Oh, yes, we're growing and it's up and to the right forever. No, calm down, slow down. Okay, we need this person. Let's cruise it. Let's cruise. I see that in your personality. And I think that's what you're referencing is just because you're a young guy and a very mature man.
Appreciate it.
And I see that and respect that like crazy.
Appreciate it.
And you like I surround yourself with people. I'm sure you have very few friends your age.
Bro, we were just talking about, none of my friends are even remote. Like, all my friends are older. All my friends are, like, I would say JV's like my best friend day to day. Like, we see each other almost every day. That's my guy. Before I moved to Texas, right, my best friend at home, who he's visited here, they're the same age. Like, I've always gravitated to people that are older than me, because I always felt like growing up, first off, like, they had more options, right? They could do more, right? But they always had more to say, Well,
there's more to learn versus learning with someone at your waist, which is fine. But yeah, we went to the 100th fucking Mexican wedding that I've gone to since Ali and I have been together. All of her friends start getting married. And I realized, aside from our wedding, the only American wedding she's ever been to, there's been one other in almost 8 years. She said, why don't we ever go to weddings? I said, because all my friends are married, they have kids, they're not getting married anytime soon.
Right.
It's they might be getting remarried,
right,
but the people I surround myself with are better than me. They're wiser than me. They've lived more life than me. I mean, I don't know how much you can divulge. I don't know if you want to necessarily break into it. We don't need to. I'm cool with whatever direction. But to see the battle that you've gone through and to see the weight that you've carried on your shoulder for so long, hopefully by the time this launches, we can have some more information that shows what's on your horizon. I mean, you've taken a massive undertaking over the past, 40 years, but aside from that, over the past year or 2 years, it's been cool to, I don't mean to say cool to trivialize it, but it's been massively rewarding to see and watch you in the trenches and watch you in these times of fall camp when you're like, I'm done with the sun. Get me out of the sun, baby. But then just knowing that process and, okay, something's going to happen. And now something's happening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I told your dad last night, this place saved my life. I'm very open about that. Not only because of the relationships, but there's three things I've been trained on my entire life. And it's kind of been ingrained in me, is find a way to lower your heart rate. So when I was playing, my resting heart rate was anywhere between like 46 and 48. Right now, I can get my resting heart rate down to about 54. So like when the world is falling apart, like I find a way, and I've probably done it, with Chuck. Like I will get it out, let the emotion out, and then I will disappear and I will find a way till my heart rate gets down, right? To where everything slows down. And two, my mother used to say to me all the time, and I never understood it, but she grew up through the civil rights movement. And even though I have a brother that's 14 months older, she would sometimes pull me aside and just, because I was almost like an only child in a lot of ways. I spent a lot of time by myself. And she said, at some point in time in your life, you're going to do something that's bigger than you. Because I was always the fastest in school in 6th grade and played
the
soccer
Michigan
in
man,
second
the whole thing.
grade in Michigan, and the recruiters. And my mother was an educator. She was a public school teacher in the worst neighborhoods, award-winning public school teacher in the worst neighborhoods in St. Louis, like the Blood neighborhood. There were many times that I almost didn't make it home because I forgot and wore Michigan stuff to pick her up from school. Like, that's how bad her neighborhood was, but they knew Mrs. Vaughn, right? But she always would say, it's like not indirectly or directly, but indirectly, you're going to do something that's going to be bigger than you at some point in time in your life. I just hope I'm here to see it. That's what the last year and a half really has been. Like, it's bigger than me. It's, for all intents and purposes, it's my civil rights movement. Because I think, just at a high level, there's a lot of scandals and abuse that's happening in sports globally. And I mean, I've heard from people all over the world now about these atrocities. And I think there's three things now that I've realized in my life that are universal connectors. Right? One is cigars, which is why we're here, but it's music and sports. Doesn't matter where you're from. You listen to music. I've been all over the world, and you hear lyrics to a Michael Jackson song, and everyone in China is singing it, or Japan, or Europe, right? And then sports. Like, we laid down all of our political alliances, white, black, blue, green, whatever, and we're fan of a sport, or we're fans of a team. And so when I think about how pure music and sports are, to see that youth sports have been, basically there's an epidemic of abuse. Like, to me, that was something that sports has given me everything that I have right now. It has produced opportunities after the game that I would have never had not with sports. Mm-hmm. So it was just a cause that I felt like, and being one that had been abused, I needed to speak up. So, and like you said, I think by the time this airs, there are some things that will make all of the pain and sacrifices and, when I say I put everything on the line and almost lost everything in this, like literally, it's going to make it worth it.
Mm-hmm. And once that launches, once the book, when everything goes, I just want to sit down with you, and I want to divulge more of that information, hop in and tell that story. I don't know if this is necessarily the time for that, but when that goes and when that sells, it's going to be interesting because we've known this and seen this, and Go Local's been a part of getting that moving and getting the ball going and getting it to producers' hands and big networks who now want to tell your story on a global scale.
Yeah, and I mean, it's really like my story, but it's our story. Because, specifically what we're dealing with is at one institution, there's thousands that need their story told. Not to get heavy, but I realized that this is the greatest sexual abuse atrocities since slavery on American soil. Like, and that, you kind of put that into perspective, like it runs wide and it runs deep, right? And so you got to have a team like Go Local and friends, and I look at everything in terms of David and Goliath. Like, what were my 5 stones? Even though he had to use one, but we had to find 5 stones to battle the Goliath of an organization that's Michigan. Mm-hmm.
It's something that's really interesting because these organizations are so big, and I see this in pro football a lot, or I see this in the media a lot, right? It's really easy to demonize and belittle athletes and players as assets, as we were talking earlier. It's easy to dismiss and cut the fat. And I was that fat. When I got hurt playing college ball and they put down the line how much it was going to cost for surgery, boy, I was fat at that point. And that was a quick and easy decision. In my opinion, completely, it's the mentality of every week you have to show up and you have to fight. You're going to ring your bell. You're in battle, and your mentality is fight to survive. And it seems as though in these instances of fighting, it's tough to shut the game off because the game is life. And I don't know if I'm doing a good job of necessarily showing that, but for some guys, it may be difficult from a PTSD and just a PT or a CTE perspective, like knowing field time, home time.
Well, I'll say this, like, it's interesting because one of the points you made when you started off, you talked about, like, especially how, like, the media it's really a reflection of us, right? It's what we absorb, the content that we want to see. Like, how much do you hear about good news? Right? When you turn on the news, you rarely hear about good news.
No, if it bleeds, it leads.
So, I'm going to go the other way. Like, I wish that we highlighted more of the great things that a lot of these players are doing. Like, instead of whether the bad things or the mistakes some of the guys have made, like, we rarely hear about their comeback story or how they've bounced back or how they've righted their wrongs, or a lot of these guys, a good number of the guys, when they get into the league, they come from very low resources in terms of income and knowledge, right? And when they get in the league, a lot of them blossom and they become these amazing men and businessmen and family men. But we never talk about that. We only highlight the ones who come from unfortunate situations, who unfortunately may not have soaked up some of the mentoring or whatever, or maybe the opportunity never came, right? We rarely ever talk about that. But the one thing I'm proud of, and I see this when I go to schools, obviously I know this from being in the league, there's just a lot of amazing men within the NFL as players that we don't talk about. We don't talk about the good things. We don't talk about the philanthropy unless it's broadcasted all over the news.
Yeah, unless it gives the NFL good, feel good ability to put it in the halftime show. The play 60. We took all the kids to the children's hospital, but you can tell it's so manufactured and full of shit.
Yeah, and not only like. Some of the stuff is not going to be headline worthy, right? Like, it's hard to produce a headline that talks about how, there might have been this player who comes from a neighborhood that's gang ridden and maybe even banged himself, but now has totally flipped the script and now is like mentoring young kids from his neighborhood. That's hard to make a headline off of that. And, unless you go in and do a documentary, which he probably isn't going to want that because there are certain things he's not going to want to expose. He just wants to help. He doesn't want the publicity. That's not going to be seen. That's not going to, there's a lot of that going on, man. I'm really proud of a lot that I see and I hear that goes around the sport of football for sure, man.
Well, and I think that greatness translates. And I think a lot of greatness is doing things when nobody's watching. And so you have a lot of guys that are doing amazing, amazing things, but they're not trying to get, accolades. They're trying to go back in their community and bring people with them and bring people up and give them ways out. So I think, like I used to watch Derek Thomas work out and got to work out with him a couple times before he passed. Never seen a guy work out harder in my life. Did things that I didn't think he could do. Right? And we'd be in the gym, no one was there. And I think that's what separates good from great, is doing things not for the camera, but doing it because you're using your body to be able to set yourself up financially and then bring people back. And look at LeBron James. His upbringing should have kept him from doing what he's done. They have never seen an athlete live up to but overcome so many odds. Other than his great athletic ability, LeBron should have been a statistic. And how he has flipped that is amazing, but there are other guys doing that too, like Chuck is saying. But this is an era now where you've got the Kareem Abdul-Jabbars and the other, you know, those athletes that stood for human rights and stood for their neighborhoods and whatnot, and whether it's athletics, music, entertainment, whatever, there's a lot of opportunity to go back and pull people out.
This is something I've been speaking about recently very often, because right now we find ourselves in this seek for equality for all of us, for everyone. And sometimes people want to have equality of outcome, but that's just not the way it's going to work in nature. But if we can make a push collectively to create equality of opportunity, I think we have, in my opinion, the recipe for success. When you have you who's going through the trenches that can help someone else who the trenches have them just kind of stuck in there, they're stuck in the foxhole taking hand grenades, but if you can just help them stand up and get out, then they have the opportunity to grow and to be back in their profession and their family life and personal life. There are these things where I think you're right. There are not many headlines, and it's not super headline worthy unless you open a children's hospital or a school or something that's real goodwill.
Right.
But I think it's our role to create the opportunity for everyone to start as close to successful as possible.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting you bring that up. This will always stay with me. I had this really awesome mentor when I was in college and grad school. His name's Keada Malloy. He's a high school coach in Maryland, right outside of DC. And at the time, he was a coach at the school I played for at Old Dominion University in Virginia. And I went with him to a clinic in DC at Friendship Collegiate. Right, it's a charter school, and at the time they were a powerhouse. Because they were recruiting, they had like D1 player after D1 player, Power 5, like they were awesome at that time. And you walk into the school and the ceilings are falling. Students are sharing textbooks. Just you walk in and you feel like you're in a prison, right? But then you go across town and you go to another school, and maybe it's private. Okay, so be it. Maybe it's private, or maybe it's public. You go to across the state line of Virginia, Northern Virginia, and you go to a high school campus and it looks like you're in a college campus. Like that sets an expectation
Of everyone.
And not only that, but like when the focus at the inner city school is we're trying to get you to graduate from here, when that's your ceiling, when that's what's the goal that's put in front of you versus my entire graduating class is going to college except for 5 people because they're going to the military based on choice, not out of force. I think those expectations and those environments, that breeds opportunity.
I think you're exactly right. It comes down to the friends, your environment, and everything you surround yourself with. If you go to South Dallas, billboards are lawyers and
bail bonds,
liquor store and bail bonds.
Yeah.
And that's your reality.
Right.
But when you go somewhere else and you see, nothing but Chick-fil-A's and Targets.
Right.
It's a small thing, but it's a massive thing.
No, it's a huge thing.
Because it's where you're going to, what you're going to let infiltrate your life and your system.
Well, and also it comes down to, at the end of the day, right? Like we talk about like family success, right? Family success. And I'm not talking about financially. I'm talking about, JV has kind of put this in my ear and it sticks with me now. Like you put currency into relationships. Your relationships are your currency. Right. So, for instance, because I'm a member here, right, with you and your family, let's say I have a family one day and I have children. Anybody in here could get my kid an internship at their company and give them an opportunity while they're in high school. Right. they hit the ground running. They understand professionalism. They get exposure into an industry, and it's probably like a high level industry, right? Like just having that experience and that ability, right? Even in my pocket now, like in my pocket, knowing like my kids will have a very different upbringing than me. That's powerful. Whereas if you're stuck in a place like you mentioned, like South Dallas, or anywhere where there's a poverty line or a line of demarcation in terms of like income, like people, you're in a cycle. You're stuck. You're literally in a hamster wheel because of lack of opportunity. So when we talk about like opportunity, like it's got to start at the ground level,
Yeah, right. And you look at it like here in the area where we are, when someone leaves the house, they're graduating to the next phase. When the athletes get out of those areas, they're escaping, they're getting out. Like a friend of mine that was from North Omaha, he just had to play basketball to get out. It's the only way. So he practiced when nobody else practiced, so he could go to school. But sports was his way out. And once he was out, he's out.
Right.
And that's almost dangerous because he doesn't want to come back, and because he's stepping back into the war zone where he was from.
Right.
So how do we?
Well, I mean, I think there's two things in human nature that we don't talk about, but are innate in everyone. Our minimums are our maximums. So if you have a goal, let's say I want to make $50,000 to $100,000, most likely you're going to make $50,000 because it's going to trigger a win in your mind and you're going to settle, right? At that point, like mostly. And no matter where you are in life, you're always going, when the shit starts hitting the fan, we all revert back to our least common denominator. So we all revert back to the least greatest part of who we are, because that is the survival mechanism, right? So if you're not pushed, or you see, like I used to talk to kids in impoverished areas, and I would say, don't let the system rob you of the ability to dream in color. Because when you dream in black and white, it's usually your reality. When you dream in color, it's outside of your reality. So focus on dreaming in color, whether that's your dreams or when you're daydreaming, when you're looking for greater, push yourself to be the greatest, see yourself as the greatest part of you. And I think the thing that sports gives us is we visualize the plays, we visualize so many things. So we're forced to train that part of our psyche that makes us see the greatest in us, a perfect play, a perfect practice. I mean, I watched Chuck look at film and he's like, JV, look at this guy, look at his steps. Look at how he moves. Look how violent he is. These things can't be taught, right? So subconsciously, he's operating in that greatest part of who he is.
Unfortunately, in life, it's different than sports. Mm-hmm. And because in sports, you have, in pro football, you have 32 teams going after one thing in February.
Yep.
They all go for it. So those steps, the million steps that he'll take to get there, every one matters to that point, and they're either going to get it or they're not, and they're going to reset it. Well, but in life, you just have to keep going.
But the Cleveland Browns are a great example of how you can also change that. Because I've argued for many, many years as a former player and as just a fan of the game over the last 30 years, that there were really only 5 or 6 organizations that from top to bottom, from the janitor to the owner, everything they did within their organization was to win that championship. Mm-hmm. Others just, everybody at the, first thing on the board, win our division, go to the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. Every team thinks that they can go to the Super Bowl, but not every team prepares to go to the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And what I've seen by my relationship with Chuck, like I would have put Cleveland in that, in the 80s, 90s, my era, they weren't one of those 5 or 6 teams, but they are now. Mm-hmm. So they've completely changed the culture of, if you look at the basement to the penthouse of football, right? I would have to, because I personally know this and I've watched it, They're one of the best run organizations in all of football. That's just like life. You can push yourself outside of your reality or your situation, right? Now, the key is if you have a talent like that, your friend and the basketball player, is to then soak up all of these information and education and mentoring that give you the skills so that you don't ever have to go back. Mm-hmm. It's like just because your way out is your way out doesn't mean your way there, or the continuance is that one thing. Because once you get out, there's more opportunities, right? It's like from a thin road, one lane road to a major highway. You have to soak in the major highway so you don't go back. Mm-hmm. And then when you go back, you can pull people out.
Well, but I think what's really important for people to understand, and I like having this conversation, particularly with people who may not come from like an impoverished situation or even been exposed to it. What I like to tell people is the unfortunate thing when we talk about those situations, you have to be an exception to get out of those situations. Right. You might be exceptionally gifted athletically or exceptionally smart, right? Or maybe you have an exceptional person in your life who believed in you and has always given you nuggets of hope and courage or information, right? That gets you out of those situations. What we have to get to as a society is for you not to have to be an exception to get out of that situation. For instance, like I said, like here in Frisco, you're not an exception if you go to college, mm-hmm. right? That's kind of, it's expected with these schools here, these public schools up here, right? These kids up here don't pay the price. They benefit off of the taxes that are generated, right? Their schools look beautiful, mm-hmm. right? Their smart boards, their resources, right? The environment's beautiful. But like you said, in South Dallas, those kids are paying the price for the local economy. Schools are old, teachers are overworked and tired, right? You have to be an exception to get out of those situations. That is unfortunate. And I'm very passionate about leading change in that regard. And it's interesting y'all brought up LeBron James earlier, because I have a very strong opinion about LeBron James. I love LeBron James. And the reason why I love LeBron James, in my opinion, there's never been a number one prospect in any sport ever who has answered the bell the way he has. Mm-hmm. And I mean, on the field or on the court and off the court. At least from his I don't know him personally, unfortunately, yet, but hopefully that changes soon. I'd love to meet him and talk to him. But at least from his public perception, what other box can he check off, right? And people, this is the thing, and I think this is another thing that will be an interesting conversation. He came into the game at the when the YouTube era started, when the whole viral cell phone pictures, right? He's been a part of that, right? So his his public perception, which is another part of knowledge, right? Which is another part of like social intelligence is very important. And I think he has whatever team he had surrounding him when he's young, and now that he's adopted and he's given his sons, is immaculate. Mm-hmm. He's no scandals. Married his high school sweetheart. Beautiful children, beautiful family, opened up a school. And then, oh, by the way, he's won, 4 championships, something like that, whatever. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's answered the bell, but it took him being an exception to get out of Akron.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. And, I had the pleasure of meeting his team in Atlanta. We were all playing poker, and his team is just like him. Like the boys he grew up with, that now run that are part of his businesses and whatnot, they're just like him. And I think that's applicable in life. Like if you look at your circle, that will determine
your circle will define you. Yeah,
your circle will define you.
Yeah, for sure.
And sometimes that has to be a circle of one, right? Sometimes you have to insulate yourself because you're an exception. And I don't at 51, I kind of just don't, I don't really give a fuck anymore, honestly. And so I was thinking about this my entire life, and I realized this was my way out, right? Everybody thinks that Britt is the most intelligent person in our family. My IQ's higher than Britt's. I have functional intelligence greater than Britt. But because Britt went to private school, he went to Ivy League, I've always had to be the exception of the black athlete. But I looked at that as these are opportunities that I can show other athletes that they can find a way to use their intelligence. You know, my legs got me in the door. Because I tell people, I'm a fast black kid from Florida, Missouri. At the end of the day, that's why you know who I am. But let me show you other things about me. And so it's about using what exception you have that then helps you assimilate and migrate through the rest of the world. And so you don't want to be pigeonholed or let yourself be pigeonholed. And now, like you see with LeBron, getting back to, he has used, because I also, what I don't think that people talk about LeBron that I should, he is hyper intelligent.
Very.
Hyper intelligent, but that's an exception. That's only an exception because that's what's covered. So he doesn't lean on his intelligence. He leans on, like, this is just, I'm authentically me. But then you find out, man, this guy is intelligent. Mm-hmm. Like, how is he so, worldly coming from where he came from? Because there's a man who had to have intelligent capacity to do that, right? And now we're in the era where we can speak our truths. Mm-hmm. I think more than anything else, and why I like these podcasts and I like what we talked about today, is like we're all just speaking our truths, and that comes out authentic, and that's what we need more of, especially from us men, and especially men of color. Like culturally, we're making a shift right now. There's a movement.
Well, and I think there's an acceptance.
Yes.
Right. And I think from my perspective and from the world I'm at is, if you're not accepting of men and women of color, you're going to be ousted by others that look like me. And I think that's probably the biggest generational change, is as the old die off, the newer perception is not one that we have to, we have to continue to work and create opportunities in that, but I think there's been such massive change in 60 years that I don't think about, but yeah, he's my black friend. Right. And the people who operate in circles where they're actually going to make a difference, I don't think they do anymore. And maybe they do, and you guys probably have a different perspective on that. But in all honesty, I think that's the greatest change. It's like there is a movement coming up, and some of the movements are politicized and some it is, but there's natural change in our culture where it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think it's getting there. It's definitely not there yet, but I do feel good about like your kids, my kid, like our kids' generation, right, really coming together and assimilating that way. And I think a part of that is because now too, like we're in the most prestigious cigar lounge right now, and probably Dallas, probably arguably Texas right now, maybe one just as good as ours, maybe. But like we're, black, white, Latino, Asian, Indian, we're all here together, we're all friends. And like we said earlier, sports and cigars bond people. So I bring that up to say, I think economics will change. I think politics will truly change once we change our heart. And to change the heart, you have to bond with people and establish friendships and trust and love. And I do think we're at a crossroads right now, I think, in humanity where we're going down the right path. And there's going to be holdovers right now, specifically when you start talking about higher levels, right? Power, money. But I do think it's changing for the better, and I'm very proud of that. And I hope that all of us here can continue to push for the right things. So
and I think we are, and just conversations like this
for sure
make the change. So I just want to say thank you to both of you guys. This is I appreciate the conversation. Appreciate your friendship, your personalities, your characters. who you guys are and what you've taught me. I'm very excited to see where you go, and I love having you as one of my 2 friends of my age that are growing.
Yeah, same. Likewise,
together,
man.
and
Likewise.
I'm looking forward to what we have ahead of us.
Likewise, man. Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah,
fellas.
thank you. And I just have to end, like, I can't wait, and me and your dad talk about all the time, to see you both in the next 20 years. And to be sitting on the sidelines cheering you guys on. That's what's, that's inspiring to me. Like, you guys inspire me to get up every day, which is cool.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that, bro.